Hello, greetings and welcome everybody. I am Dave Darrington. You can see my whole screen today because I didn't set that up. Well, that's what you get when you do things live. Welcome for another session of Working Out Loud. What is this show about? Well, we are here to learn about B2B SaaS, software and business to business that, you know what, we don't commonly get to learn about it like you normally would, right? When B2B, B2C, all those little applications like Microsoft Windows and Google Workspace, everybody uses that stuff. There's applications that you may not hear about. One of them we're going to talk about today. I think is changing the world and is pretty cool. So that's one thing, learning. Two, we want to understand how that software is changing the world. What are these new applications coming out and what do they mean for us? What's in it for me, in other words? And then above all, what I like to do is work out loud with professionals that are doing the work in software behind the scenes to make it so that you can use, so you can be successful. This is customer success in the end. So without further ado, I'm going to change my screen so I can hide my weird background. We are presenting Naomi Worden. Naomi, real brief, say hello to the audience, and then I'm going to guide you through the tour. We're going to learn all about you, your business, and your thoughts today. So welcome.
Hey, everyone. Excited to be on here. Talk about customer enablement.
Yeah. I'm super excited too. Naomi, we have talked in the past, and let me go ahead and frame this up for you. I think I talked with you, gosh, maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah, sounds right.
And you reached out. I'm doing things out of order a little bit here, but I think this is important. You reached out, like a lot of folks do, that we are in a new field. Customer education is kind of a new thing. And customer enablement, whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. We've got software, it's moving fast. We've got companies that are moving fast. We've got to figure this stuff out. We don't have a lot of time. And you'd say, Dave, can we talk? And we talk, right? We do this all the time. So tell me a little bit about where you're at now, because then, if I recall correctly, you were really passionate about getting into the space. Now you're there. So where are you at? What's going on right now? Let's open this up.
Yeah. Let's get into it. So let me talk about right now, but I think when we initially met, you really touched on like how we all kind of get into customer enablement, how it's kind of this random, but kind of logical path at the same time. So right now I run the customer enablement department at ClickUp. And, our goal is to, like pretty much every other customer enablement team, our mission is to empower the customer throughout their journey with ClickUp. We want to provide timely, effective, and relevant educational resources. And within our department, we actually have a help center team, a ClickUp University team, and training services team. So we support multiple channels of education. So it's quite a bit. We're hitting them at every point. But when I think about, kind of where I was when I was talking to you and how I got to this point, since I started in tech, I was always, my very first tech role, I ended up revamping a help center, right? And then I was at a startup in Minneapolis as a CSM, and I was helping with their customer education initiative as well. So I was always touching customer education in some way. When I did CS Ops on a RevOps team, I was also owning the help center. So in the last 2 years, I really just kind of dove into it. So before I was at ClickUp, I was actually at Chorus and working on their customer enablement. And that's actually, I think, around the time we were kind of talking more. I wanted to get more into it and start really polishing those skills.
That's great. Okay, so I'm gonna bring myself back in. I like that you did a good job setting it up. So you've been invested in the space. You're getting really excited about education, enablement, all these things. And here we are. Now you have a team. Let's get into where you're at now a little bit more, because what I want to do in this episode is talk about your journey. And I think it's really important. I feel like you've seen a lot of success in a healthy amount of time. So when did you start to ClickUp again?
I'm hitting a year at ClickUp. I started mid-September. I'm about a year. Yeah.
And you started with, if I recall correctly, just a couple of people, and now your team's pretty darn large.
Yeah, I came in September, and they were already halfway through launching the university. So we use SkillJar, and we had a trainer and an instructional designer, and their title was actually trainer. And it was pretty evident that this person was his name's Greg Mead. Some of you all
Greg.
know him in this
Hi,
space.
Greg.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's a really talented instructional designer. And it was like, this is what you're doing. This is what you're great at. But now we have 14 people on 3 different teams specializing. It went trainers, 2 trainers, then we split them into an instructional designer and a trainer. Then we started building a training team, and we hired an LMS admin in the new year. She's incredible. Her name's Robin Weisner. But like, we just grew and grew. And in May, we actually took on the Help Center team, which Karen McCosey is running. And it's just a phenomenal group of people who are really talented.
Wow. And that all happened in a really short period of time.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. And what I really want to do is break into all of this stuff. Before I do that, let me go ahead and talk about a couple things. So again, what the frame up that I said before is that I'm really interested in seeing how folks like you are jumping into really great opportunities. And what we're talking about out loud is what that felt experience is like and what you're learning. And part of it is tech. So, and part, like, what is this product? Part of us going to a platform, part of my journey was I went to Gainsight because first I thought, wow, this is really exciting. And the problem space was really amazing. It was, how do I help admins learn to use this really complicated product? And then how do we teach everybody? And then I went to another company, which was, we had an almost impossible product to learn. And part of that was, how do I find what other people are doing and what other people have been doing in the past and do education in a way that makes sense for a fast moving market. And in that case, I was working in a company called Azuqua. We were teaching workflows, and it was really complicated. Nobody used our product. So we had to get everybody excited. And then I went to Outreach, and we were the same thing. I had a trainer and an instructional designer, and all of a sudden within a couple of years, we have a really big team and we're doing great things, right? So you're at that forefront of, now you've come in and now you're a leader. Mm-hmm. I want to talk on one hand about what things have helped you. What things have you seen that you've had in the past? Like now, is there books, or there people, or there podcast? We know there's one podcast. But what things have sped you up? But then I want to talk about your experience with leadership and how now they're thinking about education enablement differently than maybe you would have seen senior leaders and executive leaderships not maybe support you as much. And then I want to learn about your product. So let's start off with that. Can you, let's get this road on the show. All right. So what is ClickUp? I see it here. I want to frame this up because I saw it on a banner the other day. I saw it on a bus. I was on a trip in the airport. I saw a big banner. I think there's a Super Bowl ad. Pretty cool. Can you tell me about the product and pitch it to me a little bit?
Yeah, our creative and marketing team is really incredible. You see it at pretty much every airport. A Super Bowl commercial was a huge win for the company as well. So let's talk about what ClickUp is.
Yeah.
It's a great question. We actually use ClickUp for everything internally, so I'll brag more about that later because I want to talk about how effective it's made us. But ultimately, like, what kind of got me into it is, like, I love the project management space. I'm very methodical in the way that I approach things, so it was definitely a product that really resonated with me. And then, culturally, there's a lot of things that resonate with me as ClickUp as a whole, as a company, and the people I work with. But our product, it's an all-in-one productivity platform. So it brings your teams and their work together in one place. So let me kind of frame up like how that actually makes sense in the industry and the market. So we want to save people time by making the world more productive. If you look at the average number of SaaS solutions used by the companies today, it's increased by a factor of 5 over the past 2 years alone. Like, think about more remote work with the pandemic and, other things. So if you're that person, you have more tools to look at as the user. You're having to be spread across all these apps, and then it becomes harder to manage because those apps don't typically work well together. Mm-hmm. So you're context switching, and then you're wasting time. So our CEO and founder Zeb is really passionate about this. He has actually really interesting, like, near-death experience stories, which feed into this. But ultimately,
Oh,
like, yeah, those are really cool to dig into, honestly. But that's kind of what drove him. Is like, hey, people are like, productivity is being killed, and we're more disconnected than ever. So ClickUp was built to solve this very problem. Like, how can we be more productive over time? How can we bring everything into one platform?
okay. Okay. That's perhaps the best pitch that I've heard. And, we see a lot of products. I think I was talking with Mark Hellinger, who's president at president at Vidiate, and they've been on the show before. And Mark said a really cool stat, which you resonated with. You said that average SaaS solutions are increased by a factor of what, 5. He said to me that on average, the stat he saw was we use about 7 to 9 different SaaS apps in a given day. And I thought about that. So, okay, what do I use? Well, not to give up anything sensitive. We use Google Workspace for predominant share about stuff. So I need to know about that. Well, then what? I need to know about HubSpot. Cool. I need to know about this other CRM. Cool. Then I use Canva. Then I use this app. Then I use Zoom. Then I use, oh gosh, I'm just going to list off so many. I probably use 15 to 20 myself.
Well, it's like, how is Slack being used too in the company, right? You have to track that, how many channels you're in.
Well, not just Slack. Think about, oh, this is fun. Think about this. At Service Rocket, we have Workspace, and we all use that. So that's the meta variant, which is actually really cool. But then we also have Slack. And I have on my desktop 2 different things. So then I get text messages from 3 different places, including the fact that I have my mobile phone integration and I have WhatsApp and so maybe that's a good place to start. Where, how about we take it like this, Naomi? Now we know a little bit more about ClickUp. I'm excited to learn more, but let's talk about your role. Now, here you are, year in, more or less, some change. What is it that okay, number one, has this been easier or harder than you expected, and why?
Oh, I mean, I think everything is harder than you ever expect, right? Like, you never know going into it. So easily, it's much harder than I expected.
Okay, why? Why is it just because there are so many more things that you wouldn't have thought about that you've experienced? More people, more politics, more not politics, more fun. I don't know. I'm curious. What
Yeah, I feel like the learning is actually really fun, but does make it hard though. So if you think about, I came in when we were halfway through launching the university.
Yeah.
And we've been really lucky. We have like really phenomenal leadership buy-in. Our CEO and founder Zeb and it trickles down, right? Like, it's the example you set from a level that high, super passionate about the customer experience. And so that got us a lot of buy-in with a lot of teams, like creative, UX designers, folks to like DevOps to code in the design. Like, our university looks great. They've done a good job branding it, like extending our brand, and making sure it feels, really similar for our customers. So there's that sense of unity. And that's attributed to that kind of trickle down effect of, this is great for the customers. Let's really drive this. But then learnings we had launching it initially, there were some kind of like user experience things we need to improve to make sure it was more optimized. And then now we really focus, the theme of this year when you're launching a university is like, how do we create better onboarding? So that's what drives us. It's like effective onboarding. But when we look back, it's like, whoa, that was a 40-minute course. Ooh, no one wants to complete that. It's too long. But we were like over ambitious, but I think that's just like a common learning opportunity. I don't want to say mistake, because it worked for where we were at the time, and it's still valuable. And those things are going to happen. But now we're kind of like, okay, how do we optimize? Yeah, so I think that's one side of it, is like where we were when we started has definitely changed. And the second piece is ClickUp is so malleable. It's flexible for small and large accounts. We have over 800,000 companies that use us, from tech companies, professional sports teams, people have planned their weddings using the tool. So it's incredibly broad. So you have to think, how do we really target the, our top customer base, our top users, to get them just do what exactly they want to do. So really honing on use cases. That's kind of where we're headed, because we want to make sure, like, great, we have core feature learning. How do we expound on that and make it even more targeted and even faster?
Okay, I think I want to take us on a twisty turny. I've got a ton of questions.
Okay.
So let me start with this thought that came through. When I had used ClickUp in the past, I tried it out and I demoed it, and here's where I struggled with it. I kind of got it right as an end user, and this was before you arrived. This was a couple of years ago, and I saw it for the first time. I talked to some people, and I go, "This is really cool. I just don't quite get it," and I bounced. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience, and I think this is actually a really good place to start our conversation and take it next, because what I want to talk about is you landed, like, here's this application that's laying out in front of you. And this is where I would be, if I was looking at this product, I go, oh boy, this is one of those kind of white space, you can do anything within certain parameters. So this is workplace integration. You've got all, like, okay, what are the core functions? If we could talk about use cases. Here's what I wanted to understand. It's like integrating all my stuff, but what are the core features of things that I can do with your platform, for one, if we were to enumerate them at the most important ones?
Yeah. I think, I kind of go with like my favorite ones too, but generally, like, the hierarchy is structured really well. So, like, as a company, you have a workspace, and then I can talk through how we set it up, because we use it for everything. And I think that's largely in part why we've been able to move so quickly with so many different initiatives. The training team alone, they have free live training webinars, an onboarding workshop on the university, and then the paid hourly training that we do for kind of larger accounts. And that's quite a bit, even in less than a year.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Massive. So I would say, like, the best way is, think about a space as a department. So we have our customer enablement department, and how we use it day to day is essentially we have our, like, quarterly goals, or OKRs. So we have those set up, and then we have our quarterly project list. So they're lists in ClickUp, which is where you put tasks, which is like where you actually do your work. Within that, you have your description, you have comments, you can trigger automations based on certain actions. So we have, like, a recurring automation on, even how I manage my team, one-on-one tasks, like, give me a weekly update, so we can optimize our one-on-one time, and any projects they want to, like, discuss or track, like, here's what I've done. We can spend our one-on-one time more talking about career and stuff, but then we have that one-on-one task where we can actually talk. They can give me an update on stuff they've been working on, feedback,
Right.
etc. So It's like down to the how I run my team directly, and we think about their growth, to our projects. We have our OKRs, and those are, through a relationship feature, actually connected to how we actually run the project in our quarterly project list. So everything is, like, interwoven, and we can update and work async via comments. We have a docs feature and a whiteboards feature. So, for example, we're talking about the email marketing approach to our university. How can we promote certain and curate that customer journey path for learning? So what we're doing with that is actually mapping out in our whiteboards feature how that should work. We have a doc. We use our docs for project briefs, and then we'll send that whiteboard over to, like, our email marketing team, so they get an idea ahead of time before we meet, and then we'll comment in tasks back and forth to work on it. So, like, when I say we use ClickUp for everything, I literally mean everything.
That's okay. That's super cool. Let me ask you another question that's one step deeper, and this is something I didn't quite get. Okay. I have used these kind of platforms together, which are the all-in-wonder kind of integrative tool. We're talking one step beyond. Is it kind of like a Google Workspace, but much more organized? Like Google Workspace, what my lament is this. Where's my stuff? I have no idea where anything is. I can't find it. There's no sense of a workflow.
Got it.
Right? It's all there, but like, how does ClickUp? I think this is the biggest fundamental thing that I was having a hard part in, because where do I start my day?
Yep.
What do I do next? How does ClickUp? I mean, I wish we could show something, but I understand, that we've got privacy, legal. We don't want to do that. But I'm interested in the problem space. If you want me to live in your platform, then that means all of my world has to be there. Meaning, do you integrate with my Gmail account, or is my email just natively integrated? Do I have all my other things? And do they just like kind of swirl around and I can organize that as a tapestry?
Mm-hmm. No, these are really, really good questions. All right. Actually, let me go ahead and share my screen. I have a
we're going to share
we can talk there.
All right. I knew I could convince you.
No, you're good. Okay.
And I'm like, transparently, Naomi, I've wanted to learn this myself, because this was the hook for me to say, I didn't quite get it. What is it that gets me over? And so that value prop to say what's in it for me. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, definitely. Give me a second. I'm going to have to do some wizardry with some settings.
Wizardry.
But I think what you bring up is it looks like I cannot record until I quit Google Chrome.
Oh.
So that's fun. Okay. We might have a visual on our website actually that I could pull up, or actually one of our courses to show that information.
Even better. Hey, we're showing learning material.
Yeah. So I think a really good point to kind of call out is the homepage. That should be kind of like where you start immediately. I'm just going to talk through it as I pull this information up.
Sure. So you've got the concept of a landing page or a home page that we have in most apps. It goes, this is where I start my day. Boom.
Yep. All right.
It's like Robin Weisner says hi. Is that how I pronounce it? I don't want to
Weisner, yes. She's our LMS admin. She's phenomenal. She said
hello, and she said she loves the transparency of ClickUp as well. It makes it easy to work cross-functionally, which is hard. That does save us a lot of time. If you can, all these collaborative tools that we have, we think that are making easy, but sometimes they don't.
All right, Dave, I'm going to have you navigate for me.
All right. So you want me to share a link? You've got a link there. Okay. I see.
Yeah. Let's, cool. I'll have you click through it. Fun learning for you too.
That works for me. Okay. Cool.
Well, I can't share.
It. Let me share. What am I sharing? Okay. Window. There. Boom. Yay.
Perfect. Okay. Click on Introduction to ClickUp. We actually just launched these new learning paths in conjunction with our certificates. So you'll see here, you have setting up your workspace. And then I want you to actually click on the ClickUp layout overview. Because this would be a perfect.
Oh, this is great. You're showing me your curriculum. That even makes me even happier.
Oh, you would actually have to log in. Shoot. Okay. All right. That didn't work as well. But,
this looks very, okay. Let's use this as an opportunity to give kudos. I really like the creative layout here, and it looks pretty. That you've done a really good job with that.
Thank you. Shout out to Robin for driving that, and Nanad, our designer. They're just really phenomenal. But I mean, so this is a good example though, right? You brought up this blocker, right, in learning and adopting. We have this introduction to ClickUp path, right? So you have setting up your workspace, which I was talking through the hierarchy. How do you do a space, folder, list? What do you use a task for? And then you have the ClickUp layout view, because the home page essentially has everything that you need to understand where to get started. You have a lineup where you can put all your tasks you want to do for that day. You have work that is due based on due dates that you have upcoming today in the next few days, things that are overdue, things that that aren't scheduled either, so you can understand what work you need to actually prioritize. And then I have it connected to Google Calendar, so I actually can see my calendar on the right side of the homepage as well. So this is kind of my getting started in the day. Okay. And yeah, I mean we can dive more into that, but that's like a good overview. But
That's good. You know what? I realized I have an account.
Let's do it.
I am trying to see if I can log into that now in the back end.
I mean, while you're doing that, I can keep talking through kind of like how we're broaching that.
Yeah, it might be okay. It doesn't seem like it's. Oh, it seems like it's working now. Let's see. I don't want to show anything. Yay! Okay, I figured it out. Let's do this. Now I can actually share what you're talking about. Share screen, window. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm logged in.
Okay.
And this what you wanted to set up your
workspace? Do the ClickUp layout overview. It's shorter, and we can do a kind of high level.
Awesome.
You know, because where do you start? How do you navigate? Click on Start Learning, and go ahead and go right in.
Okay, you get mega points for being transparent and showing your university, and I'm logged in, and I'm in the. Yeah, okay, that can't be.
Yeah. I think we got lucky there with my Google Chrome issues.
We got lucky.
Go ahead. Click Get Started at the top, and we can just kind of navigate through.
Good.
So, and this might be, you know, more in the weeds in terms of like how it's laid out.
Sure.
But I think it's a good way to show how you break down this really kind of, for us, might be minor because we're in it all day, but to you as a new user is like, I don't even know what to do now that I have it. This is a good way to do these little breadcrumbs to be like, okay, so you understand the structure. And then, you know, what we're working on the latter half of this year is like, okay, but say that you're an engineer, you're a Scrum Master, and you need to set up sprints. Then it would, you know, that's what we're trying to hone in on. You're a marketing team, and you're like, but how do I build a content roadmap?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So you're basically saying you're doing persona-based learning with your key users that map to certain use cases. So if I'm, you know, a project manager, what would I need to do? What are the common things that I need to do? If I'm an end user that's just using this for the first time, what are the light things that I need to know just to get by? If I'm a Scrum Master, what do I, you know, all these different roles? That's what you're saying?
Well, for this type of thing, this feeds into our novice certificate because we're trying to get people like comfortable and confident. Yeah, I would go to home and notifications. But then our like kind of phase 2, this latter half of the year, is actually when we're honing in more on, okay, you're comfortable, but how do we get it more targeted? Where it's not just how do I navigate ClickUp, it's how do I do exactly what I want to do at ClickUp based on my persona.
Yeah.
And we want it to be like that micro learning, like really juicy, but very short. So it's not overwhelming. Like you don't need to know the entire world, but you need to know what you want to do, right? That kind of, yeah. So that's what we're doing. So we have a variety of videos, right? These kind of work with our ClickUp tutorials.
Oh, that looks good. I love. Is this somebody that it works for ClickUp, or is this somebody
he was at ClickUp. He's actually, he's an actor. He's quite a personality, Paul. So it kind of goes through like your sidebar, your lineup. So this is what I was talking about on the home page. It shows your work for the day. And on the right side, I actually have G Calendar connected. So I could actually see where, you know, what meetings I had today, because you can drag over those tasks that you have and kind of schedule that time on your calendar.
That's pretty fascinating. So do you have, oh, there it is. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's my Google Calendar. So that's integrated. So now I have a workspace that I'm working out of, which already integrated the tools I would use, but now I'm in this space. What about email though? Does email integrate?
Yep. You can actually, from tasks, like send emails, and they can automate too. So here's like a really cool example. This is actually my most minor version. When I applied for ClickUp, I was like, well, let me set up an automation. So something I've done is similarly, like in RevOps roles, things like that. Say someone were to request via a form. ClickUp has forms. They're phenomenal. The form will create a task in the list. And say when it creates the task, maybe it's like, I don't want to say bug in the university, we'll say, you know, like maybe it's a topic suggestion for a course. That would create a task if we have it connected that way. And then it would have a status, right? So this is like how you're managing your work, moving in and out. so come in as like to do or new request, however you want to like categorize it. And then once we move it into maybe like in progress or completed, you could set up an automation where like the requester, if you capture their email, gets notified with like preliminary messaging. So it's really great because it removes that like the communication and collaboration aspect of ClickUp is really phenomenal, and you can do it in an automated way.
What's your target audience usually with? So as you're coming in, and I'm asking all these questions because this is really you as a leader trying to decompose and deconstruct and figure out how do I build all of these assets and how do we make this thing happen? Who are the primary people that you're going after with this, with the product? Is it everybody, or is it a little bit more attuned to like a product marketing manager, a managed marketing team, or something like that?
It's really general right now. Like, how can people get started? There are a few features that we see, like when they use, it increases adoption. Like our whiteboards tool, docs are great for that. Like if people create a task, right, they start working in it. So we want to definitely like target that piece of like anyone. There are some top like markets, like engineering, marketing, PMOs. Like we definitely know our top use cases, but that, I mean, so it's interesting because our university, which Robin is always good at, she's phenomenal with the data, but she essentially, we noticed trends where it's a lot of our like kind of free accounts. ClickUp is a freemium product, so we have a free forever plan. But that's the kind of the beauty of customer enablement too, is like you can create really strong content to like expand accounts to paid. You can get them to a larger plan. Like they get excited, they start adopting more. That's what we organically see. So I would say like on the university, we have a really good opportunity to onboard like more like self-serve accounts, like the smaller accounts that still like definitely matter and want to know how to use it, but maybe don't get as many resources organically because their plan they're on. So that's, I would say, like our good understanding of it, but it is really general. Like our professional services team pushes even people who go through their engagements to the university, because you can't ever not get enabled enough, right?
I'm going to take that to be a quote. You can't ever not get enabled enough. Amen, sister. Yes, as much as you can, as much education as enablement you can get, we're going to deliver, and particularly people will look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is great. I feel a lot more comfortable now just talking with you. And now that I see, okay, well, I really should have gone back to ClickUp University and all my questions would be answered. Well, let's shift gears a little bit, and we're getting about the 40-minute mark. Here's what I want to learn from you. And I want you to be as transparent as you feel comfortable with. So you got your dream opportunity to come work at ClickUp. This is a really good opportunity, and it's really fun. It's cool. It's dynamic. What did you use? What did you draw from today? And the reason I ask this is I look to you as being our next generation of customer education leaders. And why I say that is and so now I'm breaking the fourth wall and talking to you, audience. If you're this person, Adam, a bunch of different people who've been out there in the customer education space have been doing it for a while now. It's roughly going on a decade in a different flavor. We've called it customer education, not as long as that, but we've taken hard knocks and we've had to learn things together. And what we, Naomi, have really been doing is all starting to group up, not kumbaya, hold hands or whatever, but we're all starting to say, this is what we do. And this is how we go about it. Now I look at you coming in, and this is primarily because you said, how do we learn? What do we do? And we've talked, right? And you do this with other people. And many of you that are out there right now are probably doing this too. How did you get yourself bootstrapped to get to where you're at today? I mean, you're in. You have a university, and you have really great material. Your team that you work with is amazing. You can just tell. How did you get that far that fast? What were the things that you used?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I feel kind of lucky with how I even got to this point in my career, just because I've lived in the post-sale world. And then also being in CS ops. I built out like a self-serve automated channel for an e-commerce tech company. So there was no like sales touch point or anything. And we brought in $1 million in a year just from like automated email touch points and educational videos and articles. So it's,
Wow.
I think that project was one of the things that kind of kicked off, like when curating this like multi-step, really complicated, multi-channel like processes, how to kind of break it down piece by piece. Because it was a tough learning curve. So going into ClickUp, it was kind of like, all right, I have a good idea of operationally, you know, in this tech world, like who's going to do what, who should do what. So
Yeah.
trying to like pull in the right people there. Obviously, ClickUp, we could organize literally everything. When I started, it was like, all right, go look at all these lists for the project, these tasks. So I just had like basically a repository of information I could go through to understand, okay, you've already requested the design with marketing. So that's sitting there and I could start looking at it. Is that where we want to head? You've set up this integration. We didn't have SSO yet. So I started running with that. You know, it kind of, because I'm very project and operational minded, like it just was very seamless for me to kind of go into it.
To comment on that, it sounds like the job found you and you found the job in a certain way, because, you know, I find myself attracted to certain kinds of companies. Well, why I'm at Service Rocket is I love to talk to as many as I can, because every time I go and I help a company, they help me learn. And then that goes back into the general pool of, now we added this kind of flavor to education and we tried something new and we have a good I was a chemist, so I use the word substrate. Substrate is that foundation layer of skills and experiences. And yours is ops, which, you know, I actually, Naomi, I hadn't thought about this, and that how ops really sets you up for that procedural minded thinking and pairs well with project management.
Yeah,
Right.
it's really interesting. Well, because you learn the ins and outs and everything. Like, um, it's not just who should be doing what by when, but like the moving pieces. And it does kind of help you cut through the noise too, where it's like, yeah, we can do that later, or you know, like prioritize. Yeah, not that you know, we get so busy. I'm not always good at that, but like if I look at a project, I can be pretty clear on what needs to be done.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about your leadership, though. Now, this is something, hopefully, if any leaders are time traveling or they're on listening now, Naomi, I'm going to be honest with you. One of the biggest challenges that I have had in all of my jobs is, I'm going to do a little bioptic here about things I've had experiences with. And it's not to be judgmental or criticism, it's just fact. I'll come into a place, I'll have this job as, you know, customer education leader. Cool. And everything's exciting at first. Sometimes it goes well, and I feel like I have support. Sometimes it does not. And I don't feel like I have support. What's different about your leadership, and what do they say about your work and in general? Like, do they recognize the value? Do they support you in different? Tell me a little bit about how your team is helping you be successful.
Yeah, it's a great question. Like I mentioned, which I want to kind of talk more about, when I came in. So I'm under the VP of Solutions, actually. So we sit
Oh,
on,
that's interesting.
yes,
Not in
Solutions
CS.
Engineering. No, no. She is the one who actually, Angela Bunner, she was the one who was like, we have a gap, we need a university.
Yeah.
Um, so whenever I came in, they were 2 months into the project, and Alex Gorman, who was a PS manager and did a great job, he was running the project. So it was very much all hands on deck. The CEO, Zeb, was super bought in, and it was really cool because when you get that buy-in, other teams quickly line up to be like, okay, you know, this is a big push from Zeb. Like, so can we, like, we need a marketing resource. So I had already come in when you know, they were 2 months from launch. And at that point, it was like finalizing design, finishing up content, and then figuring out like promotion, which luckily I was like, yeah, I can totally lean in with those components. And Greg was doing a phenomenal job of just like keeping building the content because he knew it at that point. He was like
Yeah.
becoming an expert. So I think the kind of collaboration early on was great, like understanding each person's role. And how that's evolved is, I mean, our university is just doing really great. We launched our certificates 3 weeks ago, and we already have 900 completed. We
Whoa.
grow 5,000 plus users month over month. Like, we have a great customer base. Like, they're excited. I would say that's a testament to product-led growth. Like, ClickUp just has a lot of super fans. So there's that. And then you add in the university, and it just keeps getting, excitement, more resources, showing our dedication to customers. So I really think like our university has done really well. So it's really understandable. It gets great attention internally. But I selfishly I don't want it to overshadow other initiatives that we have. So that's kind of what we're working on right now, is like keep making that great, get more returning users, building on that, and seeing other paths, like making it tighter onboarding, but also making sure our training is like really up to speed as well. And it's also really impactful for our customer base.
That's super cool. You said something in there, and I didn't want to interject at the time, but product-led growth. Um, what I'm curious about is I hear that more and more, and I think that is a nuanced category in customer education, where when you say product-led growth, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to us as education professionals?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like for ClickUp, we're in a hyper growth state. So like when the
Hmm.
company started, it was as much as we have really like loud and effective advertising now.
Yeah.
It's branded and there's a feel for it. Um, it was really organic. Like people are just excited about the product. So there wasn't a ton of like advertising push initially. So you get those. We have YouTube people who are educating on how to use ClickUp. Like there's just this wide breadth of like I said, super fans, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that helps on the enablement side. I will say we do have to consider that with our growth. Like, is it driven by our content? Is it already set up well? And you don't want to go down that tunnel, of course, because you want to be like, oh, it's just that good. But it's something that we're analyzing, right? Because you could look at net new users versus returning users, right? We we don't have as many returning learners. Granted, if our onboarding is amazing, then I'm totally fine with that. Um, but I feel like everything needs to be iterated on, definitely. But I would just say like product led growth is like already those. How I see it is like you already have people who they were asking for a university,
Yeah.
and that sets you up really well. Like they want more education.
My gosh, that is a gift, Naomi.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, but this is helping me understand a little bit more, because I would actually, going back to the beginning and kind of pulling through what you're telling me, what I've seen, what I've experienced, because I used the product myself a long time back before you had even started. And I didn't see all those assets at the time. They were starting to get populated. Um, but this is more of it's almost a B2B to C type platform, isn't it? Where you have the B2B nuance where I can sell to a business and have them internally in their ecosystem using your platform and adopting and growing. But it's also something that you talked about, the free forever plan,
Hmm.
where you saw I've got an account I logged in. I would imagine that it gets a lot more sticky when your peers are all in.
And
Right.
ClickUp is definitely winning in that regard. We just have like out of all our competitors, like more adoption with other teams, and even our own like workspace of ClickUp is a good example. Like I can go into like the product one and see their roadmap, or like what they have in the next sprint. Like I can go to like pretty much any task. So I work with other teams incredibly well because I can pretty much go in and out of like how I've set it up. I can tag them into a task. I can, on the off chance we want to stay and click up, but click back. Like, what was that task again? It just keeps our work really organized. But yeah, I mean, you work really well with other teams too. So it's like what we see a lot is people expanding and bringing other teams into ClickUp because they see so much success with one, and they want to make sure like that consistent productivity goes throughout like a company.
That's neat. It's particularly neat if you have an application that is your ward, right? You're leading the team, you're leading the programs, and you've got a cool app that is naturally kind of sticky. But something else, you've said some things about this before. Now let's go step aside and take a different kind of lens at the work you do. And something I'm curious about, because I'm curious of you as a leader contributing back to what our pool of knowledge is about education. What kind of unique things have you seen, or even maybe not unique, just trends with your learners? Because you said, and to give you an example, you said before that your learners were asking for a university. That's new. Is that because they've been conditioned by all of us in the market who are doing this kind of work? We're building university and academies, or something else?
I feel like there's a component of that. We're in a hot market, our industry, and we're with other large competitors. Like we're up and coming. So there's definitely a degree of that, like demand based on what they've learned from the industry and like what's expected, right?
Right.
From like a productivity tool, what they expect. But I also think like trends that we're seeing are, people are pumped, and we even got like love it, would love more of this. So it's like the initial content, it's always going to be missing something, right? Because you always have to test. But I think trends right away when we launch were, this is great, but I want to learn how to do this exact thing. So we're still on the cusp of that. Like the
that
more
personalization, customization kind of, that's a tricky edge too.
It is, but with our top use cases, like in ClickUp, you have specific workflows. Like how do you manage a sprint? How do you build a content roadmap? Like those are all provable. People use them, so it's like why not? With our top use cases, like build that out. It's pretty easy, and it's like more kind of like I think a choose your own adventure. That's like my dream. It's like you know what you want to do, you go and you complete it, and it takes you like less than 10 minutes, and then you can go action right away. And then you get so excited, you're like, what else can I learn how to do? So that's really like ideal state for me. And the third thing we're seeing a lot is video. Want more video. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, and because I put in my notes, one thing I've learned about learning and the technologies we even use. When I started at Gainsight in 2015, so now I'm dating myself. That's 7 years ago. I can't believe I've been doing this customer ed thing for over that amount of time. Video was weird then. We're still using a lot of SCORM. I had started off in Adobe Captivate. It was a nightmare, not because necessarily the product is bad, but it was just a little clunky. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was having all kinds of problems, and I didn't know how to do stuff. But now, like, I didn't know where to start. Now I see Videate, Camtasia, Adobe products, Well-Said Labs, Otter. You've got this explosion in platforms that I can use to make a really wicked cool video really quick. And how has that changed things? Have you found it just really easy to go, oh, I'm gonna use that and I can make my thing now in your role today, and you feel like there's less of a struggle to say, oh, well, I don't know how to make a video?
Yeah, I do think it's a lot easier. And you have like so many other tools too to like kind of walk, like when you can I'm forgetting the words right now, but when you can like pull in the product into a course. We don't do that. But there's so many other things too for the interactivity that I think are really interesting. But from a video standpoint, yeah, I mean, like again, I told you I'm kind of methodical, but I think of everything like a formula. So if I told you video, I'd be like, I can use something as simple as Camtasia. I can get an intro, outro asset. Think about a script that's punchy and instructional. It doesn't even have to be branded that heavily. Like that helps, but people don't care that much. They just want to know if it teaches them something. Do it in less than 2 minutes. I don't even think you need to screen record and do audio differently. I think you can do it all in one and put some intro, outro music. And I'm like, done. I'm not saying that can take a while because the scripting process, but when you actually produce it, I think it could be pretty quick. And maybe it's me being in hypergrowth pretty much my whole career at this point, but I kind of feel like something is better than nothing. And no matter what, you're probably going to produce something like pretty solid. So that testing component, I think, is really important. Like, this is
Ooh.
a good way to, like it's good enough to send out to customers. They'll get excited.
Yeah, something I'm also saying, Naomi, is this thinking about how do we A/B test educational content?
Yeah.
This concept is not new, but one of the things when I was working at Outreach, for example, Outreach had a functionality where a core functionality is a sequence. A sequence is and it's basically an engagement tool. Start here, do this, send an email, send a text, call, send another email, annoy. No. But we could say for half of the people that are going to get this intervention, they get this one and the others get this. I really want to start seeing our LMS platforms and our tools to be able to do that and to give us some diversity and to try and experiment and then bring the data back like without me having to do, okay, this month we're going to turn it on and do this, and then we're going to turn it off. We're going to do the same course, but we're going to have more people in and then have to do all the work in the back end.
Yeah, well, it's so tricky too, because like changing questions, that's a big topical thing we were talking about yesterday. But it's like when you change something in an LMS, you might skew data because of something you changed. So it's like the A/B testing is difficult because of all the moving parts. So again, it won't be a perfect way to A/B test or just to test in general, but I think the more specific you get, the better. I feel like some growth teams are really good at that too, like just testing different things. And that's a big piece I'd like to just keep improving on is like when we launch something, how are we testing with KPIs, et cetera, rather than it's just performing well. What are we looking at more specifically?
What are you looking more specifically?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think we should start wrapping up. I really appreciate this discussion because I've learned a lot more out of it. And particularly, I'm thrilled to see the success you've had the program and how far you've come in so fast. And that's a testament to, you've learned a lot and you've had good resources and you have good leadership. That means a lot. So to the ClickUp leadership team, hey, good thumbs up, keep it up. It's netting you good results. If I had time, I'd talk to you more about what are you seeing in ROI, what are you seeing on lift, how are you seeing your program scale up. We don't have time for that today, so that'll be a part two.
Perfect.
Anything else you want to talk about for the audience before we wrap up?
No, I think like in the most optimistic way, know that you're gonna run into learning opportunities, right? Like you'll try different things, they won't work as well. But I think the biggest piece of advice, I was talking to a couple folks who really like founded HubSpot Academy, and they were just like test. And the other thing they said was that I found really helpful was basically around what you're doing for your customers right now might not work later, but it might be right for right now. So when I think about scalability, I'm a little less hard on myself and the team and how we're approaching it because it might be right for where the business is right now.
That is a great point to leave out on. Basically, what you're saying is things are changing all the time. We have to meet the market where they are.
Yep.
It's good enough right now. Way to go. Okay. Let's wrap up then. What's the best way to reach out to you if someone wants to talk to you more about your experiences, or even your product, your learning?
Yeah, just hit me up on LinkedIn. Add me, message me, totally fine.
Awesome. Well, Naomi, this has been a wonderful experience. To everybody else, hey, just as I close out, a couple of pitches that I always have to give. Remember, we are out there working to help learn about software, learn about B2B software, learn about B2B SaaS, all of those different fields and how we educate and hit that market. If you want to be on the show, just reach out to me. If you're interested in talking more, we have an updated page at Service Rocket. And I'm going to open this up right now and share it. I have to do this. This is part of my shtick. We have just recently updated our website. And if you're interested in getting any kind of a help or services, not only do we talk about customer education, we do it. We have our first customer education as a service program. I believe with customers who don't learn and churn, Naomi, you're doing that and you're proving how building programs and taking this knowledge we have is helping out the world. We also have a strategy workshop. The next one's coming up in September. This is the out-of-date one, but if you want to learn how to do these kind of things end to end, I would love to talk to you. So join us for that. And then without further ado, thanks for joining us. Join us next time. I am streaming pretty much every week, whether live or not. What I really encourage you to do, though, send in your comments, questions. Tell us what you want to learn about. Tell us what you want to do. Talk to us here in the channel. We're going to keep learning. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Naomi, for making this a fun Friday afternoon or morning here for me. Afternoon for the rest of the world. We're in the Pacific West Coast, at least. Take care, and thanks for joining, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone.